This is the Music History Today podcast for November the 4th. On today's show, Dylan plays Carnegie Hall and gets into a rumor of sorts. First up, though, on this date in 1817, composer Carl Maria von Weber married opera singer Carolyn Brandt. In 1847, composer Felix Mendelssohn passed away from a stroke at the age of 38. In 1908, the Brooklyn Academy of Music opened, in Brooklyn, New York, of course. In 1931, famed jazz trumpet player Buddy Bolden passed away at the age of 54 at East Louisiana State Hospital in Jackson, Louisiana. In 1961, Bob Dylan played at Chapel Hill Auditorium in Carnegie Hall in New York City. It was Dylan's first solo concert outside of the Greenwich Village coffee shop scene. Only 53 people were there, but much like Woodstock, hundreds of thousands of people swore that they saw him at what was technically called Carnegie Chapel Hall. In 1963, speaking of Dylan, Newsweek magazine printed a rumor about Bob Dylan that said, quote, "There is even a rumor circulating that Dylan did not write Blowin' in the Wind, that it was written by a Millburn, New Jersey high student named Lore Wyatt, who sold it to the singer. Dylan says that he did write the song, and Wyatt denies authorship, but several Millburn students claim they heard the song from Wyatt before Dylan ever sang it." End quote. For the record, Lore Wyatt didn't write the song. He got the lyrics out of a magazine that printed folk singers' lyrics and performed the song at school before the song was officially released, leading some people to think that the song was actually Lore Wyatt's. There you go. In 1963, during the Beatles' performance for the royal family at the Royal Variety Performance at the Prince of Wales Theatre in London, England, John Lennon said his famous quip, quote, "Will the people in the cheaper seats clap your hands, and for the rest of you, if you'll just rattle your jewelry," end quote. The Queen Mother and Princess Margaret were in the audience at the time. In 1972, the PBS Fine Art TV series Great Performances premiered. In 1976, a bomb threat was made against Bruce Springsteen's concert at the Palladium in New York City, which delayed the concert for several hours, but did not stop the concert. Bruce still kept going. In 1984, Prince started his Purple Rain tour with the first of 7 sold-out shows at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. In 1988, U2's movie documentary Rattle and Hum premiered in movie theaters in America. In 1993, a court awarded Elton John over $500,000 in his lawsuit against the Daily Mirror newspaper after they falsely reported what type of food he ate and said that he was on a, quote, diet of death, end quote. In 1994, Fred Sonic Smith of MC5 passed away from heart issues at the age of 46. In 2009, Usher divorced his wife Tamika Foster. In 2016, the movie Trolls, with the voices of Justin Timberlake and Gwen Stefani, was released in movie theaters. In award ceremonies that were held on November the 4th, in 1991, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced its inductees for the class of 1992. Among them were Jimi Hendrix, Johnny Cash, and the Yardbirds. And in 2018, Camila Cabello was among the big winners at the MTV Europe Music Awards. Albums that were released on November the 4th include in 1966 when the Rolling Stones released Got Live If You Want It. In 1969, the Allman Brothers Band released their self-titled album. In 1969, same day, David Bowie released Man of Words, Man of Music. In 1970, David Bowie was at it again, this time releasing his classic, The Man Who Sold the World. In 1973, Passport released Handmade. In 1975, The Temptations released House Party. In 1976, Jean-Luc Ponty released Imaginary Voyage. In 1977, The Ramones released Rocket to Russia, and Rod Stewart released Footloose and Fancy Free. In 1981, Black Sabbath released Mob Rules. In 1983, Paul Simon released Hearts and Bones. In 1984, Hawkwind released This Is Hawkwind, Do Not Panic. In 1985, Hawkwind was added again, this time releasing Volume 1 of their anthology albums. Also in 1985, Sade released Promise in the UK only on that date. And Barbra Streisand released the Broadway album. The Clash released Cut the Crap. In 1986, They Might Be Giants released their self-titled album, and The Pretenders released Get Close. In 1987, Sinead O'Connor released her debut album, The Lion and the Cobra, which for my money is her best album ever. Just saying. In 1991, the Cocteau Twins released the box set. In 1996, Aphex Twin released Richard D. James' album. In 1997, Asia released Live in Philadelphia, Bad Manners released Heavy Petting, Harmonica released Tracks and Traces, Jane's Addiction released Kettle Whistle, Richard Marx released his greatest hits album, Soundgarden released A-Sides, which was sort of a greatest hits album. The Spice Girls released the album to their movie, Spice World. Shania Twain released one of the biggest selling albums of all time for a female artist, Come On Over. And the Beach Boys released the Pet Sound Sessions. In 2000, Evanescence released Origin. The Allman Brothers Band were at it again, this time releasing Peekin' at the Beacon. In 2002, Iron Maiden did a fourther of sorts. Not a twofer or a threefer, a fourther. They released BBC Archives, Eddie's Archive box set, Beast Over Hammersmith, Eddie's Archive box set, Best of the B-Sides, Eddie's Archive box set, and Edward the Great, Eddie's Archive box set. In 2003, Coldplay released Live 2003, Iggy Pop released Skull Ring, Benny King released Person to Person Live at the Blue Note, Little River Band released Streams of Success, Sarah McLachlan released Afterglow, Stephen Stills released Turnin' Back the Pages, Peter Gabriel released Hit, and Bob Seger released Greatest Hits Volume 2. In 2004, Queen released Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl, and the Rolling Stones released Live Licks. In 2008, Led Zeppelin released the Definitive Collection, Lou Reed released Berlin Live at St. Anne's Warehouse, and ZZ Top released Live from Texas. In 2014, the Doobie Brothers released Southbound. Bob Dylan did a twofer. He released the Bootleg Series Volume 11, The Basement Tapes Complete, and the Bootleg Series Volume 11, The Basement Tapes Raw. In 2014, same day, Guns N' Roses released Appetite for Democracy, and Neil Young released Storytone. Singles that were released on November the 4th include in 1964 when Marvin Gaye released How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You. Also on that same day, the Four Tops released Without the One You Love, Life's Not Worthwhile. In 1966, the Yardbirds released Happenings 10 Years Time Ago. Also in 1966, Sheila Carter and Episode 6 released I Will Warm Your Heart, and Jerry and the Pacemakers released Girl on a Swing. Both of those were in the UK only on that date. In 1970, the Hollies released Gasoline Alley Bread. Chicago Transit Authority, later known as Chicago, released Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is? In 1977, Styx released Come Sail Away, but only in the UK on that date. In 1980, REO Speedwagon released Keep On Loving You, a huge hit for them. In 1983, Simple Minds released Waterfront, but in the UK only on that date. In 1985, Mike and the Mechanics released Silent Running on Dangerous Ground, which was a huge hit for them. In 1989, the Rolling Stones released Rockin' a Hard Place, but only in the UK. In 1991, REM released Radio Song in the UK. And in 1996, Michael Jackson released Stranger in Moscow, but only in the UK. Before we continue, we'd like to tell you that we've started Season 2 of the Music History In-Depth podcast, where we go more in-depth on some of the events that we mention on this particular podcast. The Music History In-Depth podcast drops every Tuesday on this podcast network. Now, back to the Music History Today podcast. Artists who were born on November the 4th include Sean Rivera of As Yet, Jeff Soto of Journey, James Honeyman Scott of The Pretenders, Chris Difford of Squeeze, Van Stevenson of Black Hawk, Mike Smith of Amen Corner, Sherry Payne of The Supremes, singer Delbert McClinton, Harry Elston of Friends of Distinction, Jeff Watson of Night Ranger, Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater, jazz musician Najee, Wayne Static of Static X, Cool Rockski of the Fat Boys, T.O.P. of the K-pop group Big Bang, Louise Redknapp of Eternal, Cedric Bixler-Zavala of the Mars Volta, singer Jordan Smith, rapper Trouble DTE, and convicted whatever at this point, producer, etc., Sean Combs. Artists who unfortunately passed away on November the 4th, other than the ones mentioned earlier, include organist Gabriel Farr, pianist Elizabeth Coolidge, country music singer Audrey Williams, the conductor for the RTB Children's Choir from 1953 to 1986, Mr. Zlatan Vauda, singer and TV host Martin Kane, singer and actress Sherry North, drummer Milt Holland, jazz drummer Len Bernard, singer and actress Michelle Nicastro, trumpet player Ted Kurson, keyboardist Eddie Harsh of the band Bulldog and also the Black Crowes for a time, Ken Hersley of Uriah Heep from 1970 to 1980 and also the band Blackfoot from 1982 to 1984. Singer and also Prince's sister, Tika Nelson, singer and actor Agnaldo Real, and Johnny Madsen of the group Dalton. Next on the Music History Today podcast, it is November the 5th when in 2021, tragedy struck at a Travis Scott concert.